In Chapter 2, we're going to be talking about comparing, ordering, and rounding decimals. You'll notice in your first slide that you have a place value chart that you have seen before. Each place value is a power of 10. So to the left of the decimals, they are whole numbers. To the right of the decimal, they are less than whole numbers. Fractions, decimals. So a decimal is a point between a whole number and a decimal fraction. You know, fraction, as you can recall, is part of a whole. So in number 2, we're going to be talking about decimals and place value. Each of these numbers has a place value. So we're going to name the underlying place value. Your notes might be small, but I will go over them with you orally and show you on the video. So the number 1 in 3A is in the 10,000 place value. So if you are asked to name what place value the underlying digit is, you would write 10,000. In B, you're going to notice that the 8 is underlined. So let's start at the decimal point and go to the left. We have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. If you need to refer to the first slide, please do. C is a whole number, 543. The 4 is in the tens place value. D, the underlined 1. If you want to determine what that is, you can start at the decimal and go to the left. Tenths, hundredths. E, the number 9, is in the ones place value. And in F, we can start at the decimal and go to the left and say tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. Check your spelling on your place value chart. All right, now you'll be asked to compare decimals by looking at the digits from the left to the right. So you're going to compare them. In these 3 examples, you're going to compare is one greater, less than, or equal to the other. So let's look at the first example, example 1. We should have a 1 here. We have 22 and 5/10 compared to 22 and 12/100. Well, how can you compare that if you don't know by looking? Line the decimals up with their decimals. So I wrote down 22 and 5/10. Then I wrote 22 and 12/100. Let's compare going from left to right. They both have 2 and 10s. They both have 2 in the ones, decimal, and then we can now compare the tenths place, where the 5 is greater than the 1. So greater than is the answer in example 1. So in example 2, again, line them up. There is an understood 0 here. Equal to. In example 3, again, compare as instructed from left to right. 8, 7, decimal point, 0. Now the 2 and the 5 compared, the 2 is going to be less than the 5. So in each of these exercises on number 5, A through I, I'm going to ask for you to pause the video Use the margin for your work. Line each of them up to determine less than, greater than, or equal to. Excuse me. Remember, there's an understood 0 here. In this example right here, 2, 2, 0, 0. In the tens place, the 0 is less than the 1, less than. Remember, there are understood zeros here. Oops. Got distracted. 2 is greater than the 0 here, greater than. That is a simple way of determining which, in the place value ordering, which is greater than, which is less than your decimals. Now, I suggest you use the same technique in number 6 to order the numbers from least to greatest. Pause the video and then come back. Check your work. So we're going from least, the smallest number, to the largest number. So let's look from left to right. Ones in the ones place, decimal. So our smallest number will be this one right here, 1 and 100th. So let's compare the last digits. We have 2 that are the same. So we will just list it once. So as you notice, you look from left to right, order them from least to greatest, and there's your answer. Now let's go to B. Do the same. Going from left to right, least to greatest. Back and checking your work. And there you go. All right. Now we're going to move on to rounding the decimals. We just got through talking about how to compare them and order them, and now we're going to round decimals. Your rules: if the digit is less than 5, round down. If the digit is greater is 5 or greater, round up. So we're going to use those two rules in the following exercise. Number 8, round the decimal as specified. What I recommend on number A is to underline the number that they're wanting you to round it to. So in A, 15 and 8/10, they're wanting us to round to the nearest 1. So I'm going to underline the 1, place value, which is a 5. That is going to look next door at the 8. In our rules, if the digit is less than 5, round down. If the digit is 5 or greater, round up. So the 5 is going to look at the 8, and it's going to round up. B, 35 hundredths, asking us to round to the nearest 10. Underline the 10th place. It looks next door to determine if it rounds up or down. It is 5. The rule is if it is 5 or greater, you round up. So B will round up to 4/10. C, round to the nearest thousandths. Start at your decimal, go tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That 9. We'll look at that 9, and it will round up. But notice that when we add 1 to all of those to round up, it is going to round to 3. D, 15 and 67 hundredths, round to the nearest 10. Underline the 10's place. It looks next door. The 1 is going to round to a 2, which means everything else will be zeros, if that's an easier way to say it. So that would round to a 2. The rest of those, since we're rounding, everything behind it will go to a 0. The final answer will be 20. E, round to the nearest 100. 4, we'll look at the 5. The 5 tells the 4 to go up. So we're rounding. The rest to the right of it will be zeros, since we are rounding. And F, round to the nearest hundredths. Underline the hundredths place. It looks next door. 7 tells the 9 to round up. So you say, how do you round up? Well, let's look at a simpler problem. If you took and added, if you rounded up 1, 1 to 29 would be 30, and your final answer would be 2.3. All right, using the concepts that we've been doing with comparing and ordering decimals, we're going to use that in some word problems. So 1 gram of olive oil costs 406 thousandths per ounce, and a second brand costs 28 hundredths, 28 cents per ounce. Which is the most economical unit? Economical means which is the cheapest. So line them up. Which is the most economical? Which is the cheapest? Would be the 28 cent per ounce. So since it is a word problem, you need to have words in your answer. Number 10. The winning times in each division for a car race are 14 and 56 hundredth seconds, 14 and 52 hundredth seconds, 13 and 99 hundredth seconds, and 13 and 9 seconds. Order the times from the fastest to the slowest. Again, use your strategies that you did for solving word problems. You determine what you know from the problem. What do you want to know? What is the question you're asking? And then go back and check to see your answer is reasonable. So again, same strategy. Line them up. We're going from the fastest to the slowest. Now, in the time, fastest would mean the less amount of seconds. So in this instance, the fastest car would be the one that went 13 and 9/10 seconds. The next would be 13 and 99 hundredths. The next would be 14 and 52 hundredths. The next would be 14 and 56 hundredths. Again, in speed, the fastest car will be the one with the least amount of time on it. All right. So if you look on your textbook on page 57 in example 2, we're asked to order the decimals. Notice that in a number line, if you had, I have drawn another number line below this one. Let's say I had the numbers 5, 6, 7 here. Well, in between each of these whole numbers, there are multitude of numbers, an infinite number of numbers between 5 and 6. Like in the example, you have 5 and 1/10, which is in the example above. 5 and 2/10, 5 and 3/10, and so on. So in between that, that's like your change between $5 and $6. There is multitude of numbers between those two whole numbers. So how are we going to compare and order these numbers that they're showing on a number line? You can do the exact same way as we were doing in the previous lesson. Line up the decimals, then put them in the order that shows from least to greatest, since we seem like we're doing it on a number line. So you can come over to the side, 5.24, 5.28, 5.35, 5.4, 5.63. Now I took the numbers that were given. You can do that to the side to compare, but I put them in the order from least to greatest. But notice that between the 5.1 and the 5.2, there are 10 digits, like a place value. So you are going to be able to plot them on this number line. So there are 10 tick marks between 5.1 and 5.2, 5.2 and 5.3. So let us plot these. 5.24. Here I have 5.2. That's 5.21, 5.22, 5.23, and 5.24. That is going to be where our A is. Now if I continue here and go to 5.25, 5.26, 5.27, 5.28, that's where my B is going to be. C is 5.4, so I'll label that C. 5.35, I'm going to go either way. I can start at the 5.3, 5.31, 32, 33, 34, 35 will be my D. E is going to be 5.63. So I'm going to start at 5.6 and go over 3. 1, 2, 3. This will be my E. Practice problems are on page 58, numbers 1 through 14.